Good morning. Welcome to my channel History with Hansa. This is Dr. Hansa Das with you, and today I begin with the first lecture in the series of topics on ancient Indian history, which is upon historical sources. Now, this video is a purely factual presentation of literary sources which shall be useful for college exams as well as competitive exams. Now, when we talk about history, we talk about a research, exploration, and inquiry into the past. History is at the same time an account of an unchanging past, the essence of innumerable biographies of great men, the story of the experiences of men, the record of the life of men in their geographical and physical environment, etc. Most importantly, history consists of seeing the past through the eyes of the present and the light of its problems. It is an unending dialogue between the present and the past. But before we are in a condition of situating the present in the context of the past, it is important to learn about the sources from which the past can be constructed. Therefore, before going deeper into the questions of historiography and the treatment of facts of the past by historians, it is necessary to look at the sources. As I said, this video is a factual representation where we will talk about different kinds of historical sources, particularly the literary sources, and also discuss in detail about the content of these sources. So, historical sources, they are the basis of any historical investigation, and ancient Indian history has been constructed principally on the basis of literary sources and archaeological sources. This video will focus upon literary sources, and the next upcoming video we will talk about the archaeological sources and will also try to make a comparison between the two. Now, literary sources are written documents which provide valuable information and knowledge about the cultural, economic, political, religious, and social life of the people. Now, we will talk about the broad classification of the literary sources. So, when we talk about the literary sources, they are broadly divided into two parts. The first one is Indian literature, and the second one is what we call the foreigners' accounts. Now, there are a number of classifications and bifurcations into the Indian literature as well. It consists of religious literature on the one hand and secular or non-religious literature on the other. Now, the religious literature is again classified into Brahmanical literature, Buddhist literature, and Jain literature, which are religious texts which give information about the then social, political, economic, cultural, religious situation. Let us begin with Indian literature, the first part of which is religious literature. So, in religious literature, what comes first is the Brahmanical literature, in which we will be discussing about the Vedas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads, Vedangas, epics, Puranas, and Smritis. To begin with, the Vedas. There are four Vedas, as we all know: Rig Veda, Samved, Yajurved, and Atharvaved. Rig Veda is the most ancient of all the sacred literatures of the world. It has 10 mandals and 1028 suktas. The 10th mandal, there are many important hymns in the Rig Veda, but the 10th mandal particularly contains the famous Purusha Sukta hymn, which is also known as the hymn of creation. This is a very important source of information for understanding the ancient Indian history. Now, the second one is called the Samved, which is a collection of melodies, and it consists of 1810 verses, mostly borrowed from the Rig Veda, arranged according to the needs of musical notation. Yajurved, the third one, it deals with the details of the performance of rituals, and therefore is also known as ritual Ved. It has two main texts, Krishna Yajurved and Shukla Yajurved. Krishna Yajurved contains mantras or hymns, and the Shukla Yajurved has commentary in prose. Then we come to the Atharvaved, which is the latest Ved, and it contains not only hymns but also spells and charms. which reflect aspects of popular beliefs and practices, and therefore it is also sometimes known as a book of magical formulae. Now, the second one of the Brahmanical literature is Brahmanas. Brahmanas were composed after the Vedas to explain the hymns, and therefore every Ved has several Brahmanas attached to it. For example, the Kashyatiki and Aitreya Brahman are attached to the Rig Ved. Tandya Maha, Khadvisha, Jaiminia Brahmins are attached to the Samved, Taittiriya to the Yajurved, and Gopat Brahman to the Atharvaved. After the Brahmanas come the Aranyakas, which are called forest books, and they interpret sacrificial rituals in a symbolic and philosophical way. There are seven Aranyakas. I've mentioned the names of the seven Aranyakas: Atriya, Sankha, and Taittiriya, etc. You can note it down from the video. Then we have 108 Upanishads, which contain a great variety of philosophical ideas about the universe, about sacrifice, but most closely they are related with the concepts of Atman and Brahman. After Upanishads come the Vedangas, which were composed in the later Vedic period. There are six Vedangas: Shiksha, Kalp, Vyakaran, Nirukt, Chand, and Jyotish. Let me explain to you in greater detail what these six Vedangas talk about. Shiksha deals with the appropriate pronunciation of the mantras. Kalp is related to rituals, duties, and sanskar. Vyakaran deals with grammar and the science of language, Nirukta with etymology, Chand with the rhyming scheme, and Jyotish with astronomy. Then we have the epics. As we know, there are two great epics, Ramayana of Valmiki and Mahabharata of Vedvyas. Now, here I would like to quote what R.C. Majumdar has said about these two epics. He says, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata have molded the character and civilization of the Indians in a way which perhaps no other literary work can claim in any part of the world. So next, after epics, we have the Puran. Puran, uh, Puranas cover a wide range of topics about myths, legends, and various kinds of traditional lore. Basically, the 18 in number, like the Vishnu, Narad, Bhagavad, Garud, Varaha, and so on. And finally, in Brahmanical literature, we have Smriti. Smriti means remembrance, and they are the auxiliary treatises of the Vedas and are regarded as part of the revelation. And there are six famous Smritis: Manusmriti, Yagyavalkya Smriti, Narad Smriti, Parashar, Brahaspati, and Katyayana Smriti. So this is the end of the Brahmanical literature. Now we come to the Buddhist literature, which is uh, generally divided into canonical and non-canonical texts. Now, what do we mean by canonical texts? Canonical texts are books which lay down the basic tenets and principles of a religion or sect. So, the canonical literature, the religious literature of the Buddhists, it is known as Tripitak, or the three baskets, which consists of Sutta Pitak, Vinay Pitak, and Abhidhamma Pitak. Now, we will describe each of the three Pitaks in a little detail. First of all, the Sutta Pitak. Sutta Pitak contains the Buddha's discourses on various doctrinal issues in dialogue form, and Sutta Pitak in turn contains five Nikayas, of which one important one is Khudak Nikaya. Khudak Nikaya, which comprises the Jatakas, Theragathas, and Therigathas. Now, Jatakas are the stories of the former births of the Buddha. Theragathas are verses of elder monks, and Therigathas are verses of elder nuns. Now we come to Vinay Pitak. Vinay Pitak deals with monastic discipline, rules, and regulations for monks and nuns of the Sangha. And the third one is Abhidhamma Pitak, which contains a thorough study and systematization of the teachings of the Sutta Pitak. So this is the canonical literature: Sutta Pitak, Vinay Pitak, Abhidhamma Pitak. Now we come to the non-canonical texts, in which the first one is Milinda Panha. Now, Milinda Panha is a book which is based on a dialogue on various philosophical issues between the Indo-Greek king Menander and a Buddhist monk Nagasena. Then, uh, uh, among the non-canonical texts, we have some Sinhalese doctrines, Sinhalese chronicles, which are called Deepavamsa and Mahavamsa, which contain a historical come mythical account of the Buddha's life, Buddhist councils, the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka, the kings of Sri Lanka, etc. The third non-canonical text is called Lalit Vistar, which is a hagiography of the Buddha associated with the Sarvastivada school. And finally, we have the Buddha Charit, which is a Sanskrit Buddhist text written by Ashwaghosh. So this was about Buddhist literature. Now we come to the third classification of Indian religious literature, which is the Jain literature. Now we have once again divided Jain literature into two categories. The first one is called the Jain canonical texts, and the second category is that of the Jain Puranas. Now, among the Jain canonical texts, the sacred books of the Jains are known collectively as Siddhant or Agam, and I will explain to you what these are about. These are, first of all, the 12 Angas. Now, the 12 Angas, they explain Jain doctrines with the help of legends and stories. 12 Upangas, which are dogmatic and mythological texts or Upangas associated with Anga texts. 10 Prakirnas, which are regarding doctrines of Jainism. Chhed Sutras, rules of discipline in monasteries. Mool Sutras, about various doctrines of Jainism. And then there are a number of miscellaneous texts which we include into the canonical category. Then we have the Jain Puranas. Jain Puranas are the hagiographies of Jain saints known as Tirthankars. For example, we have the Adi Puran, the Harivansh Puran, the Parishishta Parvan, and all those things. So here we come to an end of the first category of Indian literature, which was the religious literature, in which we have seen the broad classifications of Brahmanical, Buddhist, and Jain literature. Now we come to the second classification of Indian literature, which is secular literature. Now we have a large body of secular literature in the form of biographies, dramas, historical texts, scientific, technical works, works on polity, works on grammar, etc., which are used by historians as sources of information about the times in which they were composed. Now, again, we have divided secular literature into certain broad categories. For example, biographical works, chronicles, works on polity, grammatical works, scientific, technical works, etc. So, according to that classification, we will proceed into the secular literature. So, the first category of secular literature is called biographical works. Biographies written by different scholars. The first one is the Buddha Charita by Ashwaghosh, which is an epic poem in the Sanskrit Mahakavya style, which is an account of the Buddha's life and teachings. The second one is Harshacharit, which is a biography of the king Harshvardhan, which was composed in Sanskrit by his court poet Ban Bhatt. Next is the Vikramankadev Charit. Vikramankadev Charit was written by the 11th century Kashmiri poet Bilhan, and it basically celebrates the life and achievements of Vikramaditya VI, the Western Chalukyan king. Then we have other biographical works like the Godavaho, Kumarapala Charit, Prithviraj Raso, etc. Prithviraj Raso, it is an epic poem about the life of Prithviraj Chauhan. Now, after the biographical works, we have the second category, which is called dramas and poetical works, in which we have major contributions being done by scholars like Kalidas, Harshvardhan, Vishakadatta, etc. So, first is Bhasha's Swapna Vasav Datta, which is the plot of the drama is drawn from romantic narratives, and it is also known as the dream of Vasavdatta, basically a Sanskrit play in 6 acts, which was written by Bhash. Now, Kalidas has contributed immensely to the secular literature of ancient Indian history. So, we have Abhigyan Shakuntalam, Malvik Agnimitra, Vikramor Vashya, Raghuvams, Kumar Sambhav, Meghadoot, which are innumerable in number, and they depict different contexts and different stories uh, in these texts. Then another important work is the Mudra Rakshas of Vishakhdar, in which is basically a Sanskrit language play by Vishakhdar that narrates the ascent of Chandragupta Maurya to power in India. Then we have the three famous works of the king Harshvardhan, which are known as Ratnavali, Pradarshika, and Nagananda, important works attributed to Harsha. Then the next category is that of folklore, in which we have Gunadhya's Brihat Katha, Somadeva's Katha Sarita Sagar, Vishnu Sharma's Panchatantra. Panchatantra, as we all know, it is a collection, an ancient Indian collection of animal fables in Sanskrit verse and prose, which is written by Vishnu Sharma. Then we have chronicles. The most important chronicle we have for ancient Indian history is Raj Tarangini, which means the river of kings. It is a legendary and historical chronicle of the northwestern part of Indian subcontinent, particularly the kings of Kashmir, and it was written in Sanskrit by the historian Kalhan. Then we have other chronicles like the Rasamala of Someshwar, Prabandh Chintamani of Merutunga. Merutunga, who was a Jain scholar. Then we have Prabandh Kosh of Rajashekhar, which is a collection of prabandhas or legendary biographical narratives. Then we come to works on polity. Of course, Arthashastra, the most important one, written by Kautilya, which is an ancient Indian Sanskrit treatise on statecraft, politics, economic policy, and military strategy. Then we have Niti Shastra of Kamandaka, which is based on Kautilya's Arthashastra, and it serves as an important literary source of Gupta age. Then we have grammatical works, in which the first one is Ashtadhyayi of Panini, which is a grammar text that describes a form of Sanskrit language. And the second one is the Mahabhashya of Patanjali, which is known as the Great Commentary, and it is attributed to Patanjali. It is also a commentary on selected rules of Sanskrit grammar. The next category of secular literature is called scientific works, in which we have Aryabhat's Aryabhatya, which is an astronomical treatise and composed by the 5th century Indian mathematician Aryabhat. Similarly, we have Brihat Samhita, which is a 6th century Sanskrit language encyclopedia compiled by Varahamihir. Then we have Charak Samhita and Sushruta Samhita, which are books on medicine, books on Ayurveda, that is Indian traditional medicine. And then we have Natya Shastra, which has been influenced by dance, music, literary traditions in India, etc. And finally, we have Shilpa Shastra, which is the science of Shilp, that is arts and crafts. Now, the last category of secular literature is Sangam literature. Just as we have epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata in the Brahmanical literature, so do we have epics in the Sangam literature. The first or the earliest epic is known as Silapadikaram, and Silapadikaram was written by Ilango Adigal. It has been translated as the tale of an anklet, and it is definitely the earliest Tamil epic and an ancient literary masterpiece. Now we could say that a sequel to the Silapadikaram is the next epic, which is called Manimekalai, composed by Sithalai Satanar. And Manimekalai has been considered to be an anti-love story, a sequel to the love story in Silapadikaram. Now the third important text of Sangam literature is Tirukural, which is a classic Tamil language text written by Tiruvalluvar. And the fourth one is Jivaka Chintamani, which has been authored by a Jain ascetic Tirutaka Tevar, and it is also an important epic and important text of the Sangam literature. So this is the end of the first category of literary sources, which is Indian literature, which we have seen has been divided into religious, and secular literature. Now we come to the second portion, the second classification of literary sources, which is known as foreigners' accounts. Now, foreigners' accounts, in this category, we have a number of Greek, Roman, Chinese, Tibetan, and Arab scholars or travelers who came to India and recorded India of their time. When we talk about the Greek accounts, mention may be made of Herodotus, who's a Greek historian and has been described as the father of history. Then we have Skylax, Strabo, Diodorus, Ptolemy, Arian, Plutarch, etc., who have also contributed a lot to ancient Indian history, its writing. And then we have Megasthenes, a very popular scholar who was a Greek ambassador of Seleucus Nicator in the court of Chandragupta Maurya, and he described India in his book Indica, which is now lost but has been partially reconstructed from literary fragments found in later authors that quoted his book. Then we come to Roman accounts. Roman accounts, we basically have the accounts of Pliny, who was a Roman author and naturalist, and Justinus, who gives information about geography, history, trade, etc. of ancient India. Now, Chinese accounts are equally important, and the three main Chinese accounts we have are of Fahian, Yunzang, and Itzing. Fahian was a Chinese Buddhist monk, and his accounts are about the Gupta period and especially of Chandragupta Vikramaditya. Yunzang, his book is known as the Siyuki, and it gives an account of the king Harshvardhan. The third one is Itzing, who is also a Chinese Buddhist monk, and his account of his travels are an important source for the history of India, along the sea route between China and India. Then in Tibetan accounts, we have the account of Taranath, who was considered to be the most remarkable scholar and exponent of Tibetan Buddhism, and his best known work is called History of Buddhism in India. Okay, then we have Arab accounts or Muslim accounts, in which we have the Tehqiq-e-Hind of Al-Biruni, Rihla of Ibn Battuta, and the works of Al-Masudi, Suleiman, and Hassan Nizami. So we have these foreigners accounts. Now we will quickly look into the significance of the foreigners accounts and the limitations of the foreigners accounts. So when we talk about the importance of foreigners accounts, the first most important point is that they provide a lot of information about India's cultural, economic, political, and religious life. Different accounts talk about different things. Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, it refers to the existence of several ports in India. Then we have several accounts which talk about the economic prosperity of India, or for that matter, Megasthenes is talking about the administrative system of the Mauryas. But when we consider the foreigners' accounts, there are certain limitations also. The most significant one is that they have distorted facts according to their own convenience and views, and also probably they did not know the local languages of the country, which might have posed as a problem. So this is the end of the classification of literary sources. I hope this video has been valuable to you. Literary sources, as I've said before, there are important written documents which talk about the different aspects of ancient Indian history. There are a number of limitations or a number of demerits also attached to literary sources. They can be tampered with. Then there is the problem of interpretation. Different accounts have been interpreted differently by historians, so the problem of subjectivity comes into importance when we talk about the ancient Indian sources. But apart from all the limitations, we have to accept that literary sources are one of the most important sources for constructing the Indian history of the ancient times. Hope you like the video, and I hope it proves to be useful for your college exams as well as for your competitive exams. And the next video we will talk about archaeological sources, and we'll also make a comparison between the literary and archaeological sources. Thank you. Thank you for watching.